Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back for another video. Today's video we're going to be covering the season finale and the penultimate to season 2 of Interview with the Vampire.
A twofer.
Episode 7 is going to be kind of a quick one because I did not get a chance to make its own video, so I'm just going to kind of incorporate it into this one. But it's pretty quick, to the point episode. It's called I Could Not Prevent It. It's all about the trial that we get after Louis, Madeline, and Claudia are all swept up at the end of the last episode. But we get this trial, this play that has been designed specifically for this reason, to put all these vampires on trial, because Santiago goes out of his way to form his own coven within a coven, getting all the vampires to turn on Armand and get them to follow him. And he goes and investigates Claudia, investigates Louis, and finds all of her journals. And one of their rules is you're not supposed to more or less write down the history of the vampires. Plus, doing this, they discover that her and Louis actually killed Lestat, or tried to kill. At least they believe that they killed him. But like I said, pretty quick about episode 7, the trial. The whole thing is Santiago getting his kind of sick pleasure out of this trial going on, and we get the rehash of everything that was led up to the point of the assumed killing of Lestat. But then they bring him in. He's part of the play. They rehearsed it. They went over these things. And at first you have Lestat in there, and you believe that he's 100% a part of this trial. He wants to see justice for the attempted murder of him. And we get some kind of clues and hints, and especially things are confirmed in the next episode. But this one is pretty just on the point, and we get the thing that we all knew was coming. If you're familiar with the story, if you've read the books, if you've seen the old movie, we get the death of Claudia and Madeline. Madeline, as we know from the last episode, she was made by Louis to be a companion to Claudia because she was lonely. She didn't want to be in this coven anymore. They just wanted to leave, but that got kind of all swept up and turned on them when Armand basically gave them over. He turned on them, he betrayed them, he gave them to the coven and kind of set them up to be kidnapped and then put on this trial. And all the while, we're led to believe that he is a prisoner amongst the coven, but that's also more information that is revealed in the season finale, and we get more depth into what's actually going on, the part that he plays in it. So the whole trial is going on. We're getting these questions. They're getting the audience to have their judgments. And as we know from the previous episodes and basically this whole season, we got these weirdo fanatic types that are in the front row. Of course, they're in this episode. And we get to the judgment part of it after they've rehashed everything, after they've had time to ask questions and just basically make a mockery of everything that's going on, make a mockery of Claudia and Louis and the fact that they brought in Madeline and made her a vampire, and just breaking the so-called rules of the vampire species, whatnot, the great laws. And we get the death of Claudia by sunlight. Her and Madeline are put to death, but it was all supposed to kind of be together. Louis was supposed to be a part of this too, but at the moment that they ask the crowd what they deserve, they say, of course, he's guilty. And along with Claudia and Madeline, they wanted to put him to death. But at this moment when they ask everybody what they deserve, we get kind of a moment where we think someone's interfering, and we're led to believe that it's Armand. But I will go into it for the season finale. But they banish him instead of put him to death because someone interfered with their minds and made them say banishment instead of death. But kind of closing out that one, we go into the season finale, and now we have all the events that took place after. We get, of course, the jumping to present day and back into the 40s. And we get Louis after he's been in this coffin, because they take him and put him in a coffin filled with rocks so he can't move. And then they shove him into that wall where they have all of those morgue cabinets or whatnots with placards of vampires that they've also put to death or put to banishment, whatever. Basically making them starve to death. Because the vampire, in a sense, is still a living creature, and they need blood to be able to keep going, keep their abilities up, to heal, and all of this. So they banish Louis to go into this wall and to starve to death. And I want to believe Probably a few weeks to a month or more pass, and he's in this wall, and he's just slowly dying. And he talks about how his body is still healing, but his heart is pumping slower every day. And he's just suffering, and he's in utter misery and torment until one day he's pulled out of the wall and he's fed blood and kind of left into the sewers. And then Armand reveals that he was the one who got him out and put a corpse in his place. So they all don't know any different. And then we get what I think was just an amazing part of the episode, and just leading up to this, I knew it was coming. We get Louis, and he's getting his revenge for the death of Claudia, because even though he didn't witness it, he knows that Claudia's dead. He can feel it. And on the brink of just utter insanity and madness, he devises a very intricate plan of how to take all of these vampires out, how to take them out all at once, and then he puts contingencies in place to take out particular ones if they get away. And of course he goes in there and he sets fire to all of it, because he explains that while vampires are in their coffins and while they're in their resting phase, they are more or less oblivious to everything going on around them. They shut their senses down so they can rest. And so he takes this as the opportune moment to get into here, because for all they know, he's dead. And he gets in there, sets the place on fire, gathers up Claudia's things, because Santiago, being kind of the psychopath that he is and just very smug piece of crap, he keeps Claudia's diaries and her dress that she burned in and kind of puts it on display. So Louis gathers these things up. He makes his way out as everything's burning down around him. And then he knows in his head, because he's kept counts on who he had to deal with, who he had to put down that didn't burn in the fire. And he realizes that Santiago has gotten out, but of course he has a plan in place to get him, to attract him to him, draw him to him, and he carries this plan out. He's very intricate about it and very patient about it, and he draws him to him, and just the way he takes him out is just all deserving of what Santiago has coming towards him. It's just a glorious death for him. He sneaks up on him. He thinks that he's kind of outsmarting him or whatnot. And Louis is just waiting for him. And we see Santiago pop up through this sewer cover. And he thinks that he's got the jump on Louis. Then he turns around just in time to catch a machete to the neck. And Louis decapitates him. And it's just an amazing death, and just kind of funny at the same time, because you hope that this would be happening. And the way that he takes out a couple of the women vampires, because they get away on their motorcycles that they have parked outside the theater, he actually cuts the fuel line so it slowly leaks onto the motor, causing that fuel to spark. And as they're driving across this bridge, both bikes just go up, and it's just awesome. We do have one vampire that gets away, but he's not too concerned about him, it seems. This was the vampire Sam, who was guarding Armand's booth, and who was, I want to say, one of the writers of the play and whatnot. But we get our revenge scenario. We get everything that these vampires had coming for what they did to Claudia and Madeline. And then we get our kind of follow-up days to those events. We get Armand, who is still kind of pining after Louis, saying that he's the one who saved him during the trial, getting the crowd to say banishment instead of death. And so we're led to believe that is the case for what we can say is the next 70 years of this story. So they track down Lestat, because Armand lets him know that he still is in Paris. Louis has every intent to kill Lestat, but he kind of comes up with a different way to punish him. And he just kind of rubs it in his face that he's going to leave with Armand. He's going to stay with him, and they're going to be happy together and all of this. And so they go off, and then we get our flash forward to present day, where Daniel's wrapping up this interview for his book. And during this whole time, Rashid, as we know, has been kind of an undercover agent in a sense, where he's working with this organization where Daniel's getting all this outside information, and he sneaks him some additional information with his morning paper, and it's actually the script pages of that play with the notes from Armand, because it comes to light that Armand was actually directing and rehearsing the play just like all the other vampires. He did not stand aside like he told Louis. He was not hiding in his coffin during all of this. He was giving the direction, taking notes, telling them how they should do this and that. And we get these moments with Lestat where, from all we knew before, Lestat was a very just malevolent and evil vampire, like the worst of the worst. And he has a couple of moments where they're talking about how they're going to keep Claudia quiet and whatnot. And he has this just kind of lashing out moment where he says, "You don't know how strong she is," or something to that nature. So we can see that he does care. He just spent so long probably being angry and disappointed, in a sense, I guess, with Claudia and Louis for what they did to him, because he gave them the gift of eternal life and whatnot. And he sincerely cared about them. But we get this moment where Lestat has this little lashing out, and then we get the reveal as Daniel's asking additional questions after the end of the interview about this play and just different spots throughout the history and whatnot. And it is revealed that Lestat is the one who actually saved Louis when they tried to put him to death. Armand didn't do shit. Armand is the whole reason they were there to begin with. And so Daniel gives Louis these script pages and is reading through them, seeing these notes, seeing that he was a part of the whole process. And they get into it in the next room, and Louis threatens Armand before Daniel exposing this, threatens Armand, saying that if you harm him, I will kill you. If you lay a finger on him, I will kill you. And so he arranges Daniel to be paid for his work, to get him a plane and a car to get out of there. And then we get kind of a jump forward. We have Louis back in the States, back in New Orleans, visiting the old areas where everything took place in this tour group where they're telling the story of what happened, or their rendition of it. And he's just kind of laughing about it, going along with it. And then we see this vampire in the background snatch up rats out of a trash pile. And so he follows him. And then we come to see Lestat is there. He's living kind of in a tattered, rundown building. And he has this other vampire that we can assume that he made, running errands for him, getting rats for him to feed, because maybe Lestat has kind of laid off people and he's just become kind of a recluse. And him and Louis just have kind of a back and forth, no real emotion behind it, until they start talking about Claudia. And we get the reveal that Lestat is devastated for what happened to Claudia. He could not save her. He would have liked to, but he had to save Louis because he did care about him. He does care about him. And they just have this moment where they forgive each other for all of the awful things that they did to each other. And it's just kind of a beautiful moment that we have between these two people. And everything that they went through just doesn't mean anything now. So we have this moment where they forgive each other for the things that they did. And Louis explained to him that I shouldn't have treated this eternal life or what have you as a curse. It was a gift. And just how they still think about Claudia every single day. And then we get a jump to a scene where we have Daniel on TV doing an interview about his new book, Interview with the Vampire, and how the host is kind of mocking him, saying that this has to be fake. And Daniel's going on saying, this is absolute truth. I interviewed an actual vampire. And then we see him leave the building after kind of making fun of the host, more or less, and throwing his press pass into the trash can. And it looks like he's talking on the phone, but he is in fact communicating telepathically with Louis because he is now a vampire. He was left alone with Armand. Armand kind of changed him out of spite. And now we have Daniel, who is this vampire who is communicating with Louis, telling him that all of these other vampires around the world are now pissed for revealing their secrets and they want him dead. And he's telling him to lay low, get out of the area, do what you have to. And it's just an interesting close to the story. And we didn't actually see Daniel leave that building, so you can only assume this is how it was going to turn out, that he didn't say anything when Louis threatened Armand's life about not turning him. You just can't kill him. So he did the next best thing. He turned him, and we don't hear anything from Armand, so we can assume that he's kind of ran off. He's doing his own thing now, probably with his tail tucked between his legs because he's a little heartbroken over losing Louis, because Louis does dismiss him out of his life, saying that when I come back home, you don't need to be here. And so we get this closing out of this story, and we have Louis, who can hear all these vampires talking about him, plotting his death. And Louis, just kind of being the badass that he is, he sits down in his little gravel floor room to connect all these vampires, basically saying, bring it. I am not afraid of you. You come at me with everything you got. Here's my address. Here's where I live. And just kind of closing out this chapter of the Interview with the Vampire story. And one little tidbit that I did kind of forget to go over, wanted to mention, was when Armand and Louis are confronting Lestat and threatening his life or whatnot, And he goes on to say that he has the blood of Magnus, who is an ancient vampire. And then they say you can still be killed or whatnot. And then he says, I have the blood of Akasha, who is, if you're not familiar with the atrocious movie that is The Queen of the Damned, Akasha is one of the originals, the vampire goddess who's responsible for all vampires. At least I think. I'm not 100% sure because I only have Queen of the Damned to go off of. But so I'm hoping they cover that if they do indeed do a third season. I have not heard anything yet, but this was an amazing season to this show, a show that I did not have high hopes for when it first came out, and just it has exceeded all expectations. So I've really enjoyed it, and I'm hoping that we do get an announcement of a third season sometime soon. But anyways, if you enjoyed my review of Season 2 of Interview with the Vampire, be sure to check out all of my other episode recaps. And I guess that will do it, guys. So if you enjoyed the video, enjoyed the channel, check out my other stuff, please be sure to leave comments, leave likes, and of course, subscribe to the channel. Help me reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers, and I would really appreciate it. So until next time, guys, take care. Bye.